The human cargo ship, the Valiant, was on a routine supply run, cruising through the vast expanse of interstellar space. Captain Emilia Sarandos and her seasoned crew had traversed this particular route dozens of times, their well-oiled operations carrying on with the predictable efficiency that came from years of experience. But today their journey would take an unexpected and harrowing turn. Without warning, a small squadron of alien vessels appeared on the ship's scanners, rapidly closing in. Emilia immediately ordered her crew to full alert, but before they could mount a defense, the alien ships had surrounded the Valiant, cutting off any chance of escape. All hands braced for impact. Emilia barked, bracing herself as the first salvo of energy weapons slammed into the ship's shields. The Valiant shuddered under the assault, but her robust construction held firm. As the weapons' fire subsided, Emilia's heart sank as a heavily armed boarding party materialized in the cargo bay. She watched helplessly through the bridge view screen as the alien soldiers swarmed into the ship, their advanced weaponry and armor giving them a clear advantage over the Valiant's crew. But Emilia's focus quickly shifted when a lone figure strode through the chaos, commanding the attention of all who laid eyes upon her. She was a young woman, though her regal bearing and the ornate armor she wore marked her as anything but human. This was no ordinary soldier. This was someone of great importance, and she had just seized control of the Valiant. "I am Princess Astra of the Tsilian Empire," the alien woman declared in a tone that brooked no argument. "I have commandeered this vessel, and you will all surrender to my authority. Resist, and you will be destroyed." Emilia's crew tensed, their hands moving instinctively toward their sidearms, but a single glare from the princess froze them in their tracks. Emilia knew that in their current state, the Valiant stood no chance against the superior alien firepower. Reluctantly, she stepped forward, raising her hands in a gesture of surrender. "Very well, Princess," Emilia said, her voice laced with barely contained anger. "You have our ship. But I warn you, harm my crew, and you will answer to me." Astra's lips curled into a sardonic smile. "Your threats mean nothing to me, human. I have no intention of harming your crew, unless they give me a reason to." She turned and gestured to her soldiers. "Secure the bridge and the rest of the ship. Make sure there are no surprises waiting for us." As the armed aliens began to fan out, Emilia caught the eye of her first officer, Jansen, and gave him a subtle nod. They may have been outmatched for now, but Emilia had no intention of rolling over and accepting their fate. She and her crew would be watching, waiting for any opportunity to turn the tables on their unexpected guests. As the alien soldiers began their systematic sweep of the Valiant, Princess Astra turned her attention to the human captain. Emilia stood tall, refusing to be cowed by the princess's imperious demeanor. "I hope you understand the gravity of your situation, human," Astra said, her cold gaze boring into Emilia. "This vessel is now under my command, and you and your crew will do as I say, without question." Emilia held the princess's stare, her jaw set in a determined line. "We are a cargo ship, Princess. We have no interest in your conflicts or your politics. If you require safe passage, we can discuss terms, but I will not simply hand over my ship to you." Astra's eyes narrowed dangerously. "You misunderstand, Captain. This is not a negotiation. I am not simply seeking passage. I am taking this ship. Your petty concerns mean nothing to me." "Then you leave me no choice." Emilia's tone was laced with regret. "My crew and I will defend this vessel to the last. We will not be cowed by your threats." The princess let out a derisive laugh. "You really think you can stop me? Your primitive weapons are no match for my soldiers. If you resist, I will have you and your crew executed, one by one." Emilia's expression hardened. "Then so be it. I would rather die fighting than submit to your tyranny." Astra's eyes widened briefly, as if surprised by the human's defiance. But then a slow, predatory smile spread across her lips. "You intrigue me, Captain Sarandos," the princess purred. "Most beings would have capitulated by now, faced with the might of my forces. But you, she paused, her gaze sweeping over Emilia. You and your crew have spirit. Perhaps there is a way we can come to an understanding. Emilia's brow furrowed in suspicion. What are you proposing? A simple exchange. Astra's smile widened. I will spare your crew and allow you to continue your journey unharmed. In return, I will take this vessel as my own. Emilia's eyes narrowed. And what guarantees do I have that you will keep your word? The princess shrugged dismissively. You have my word as Cillian royalty. Surely that should be enough. Emilia's jaw tightened as she considered the princess's offer. On one hand, it would mean the safety of her crew. But on the other, she would be forced to abandon the Valiant, the ship she had commanded for over a decade. As Emilia hesitated, Astra's smile widened. Tick-tock, Captain. Time is running out. What will it be, your ship or your crew's lives? The weight of the decision hung heavy in the air, as Emilia knew that whatever choice she made, it would have far-reaching consequences. With a deep breath, she steeled herself and met the princess's gaze. Very well, princess. You have a deal. Emilia's heart raced as she weighed Astra's offer. The safety of her crew was paramount, but the thought of abandoning the Valiant, the ship she had commanded for over a decade, filled her with a deep sense of dread. Very well, princess, Emilia said, her voice barely concealing her anguish. You have a deal. My crew will be allowed to leave unharmed. Astra's lips curled into a satisfied smile. Of course, Captain. I am a woman of my word. Your crew will be permitted to depart the Valiant once we have taken control of the ship. Emilia nodded stiffly, then turned to face her first officer, Jansen, who had been silently observing the exchange. Jansen, gather the crew in the mess hall. Inform them of the situation and make sure they are ready to disembark when the time comes. Jansen's eyes widened in alarm, but he quickly schooled his features, offering Emilia a solemn nod. Aye, Captain. It will be done. As Jansen hurried off, Emilia turned back to Astra, her expression hardening. And what of the Valiant? What do you intend to do with my ship? Astra's smile widened. The Valiant will be my new flagship. I have need of a vessel capable of traversing the vast distances of space, and this ship seems more than adequate for my purposes. Emilia's jaw tightened. I hope you understand the gravity of what you're asking. The Valiant is not some toy for you to play with. She's my home, my livelihood. Surely there must be some other way. Astra raised a hand, silencing Emilia. Enough. My decision is final. The Valiant is mine now, and there is nothing you can do to stop me. Emilia opened her mouth to protest, but the sound of approaching footsteps drew her attention. Jansen had returned, his face etched with a mixture of resignation and determination. The crew is ready, Captain, he said, his gaze shifting briefly to Astra before returning to Emilia. They're waiting for your orders. Emilia nodded, then turned to Astra. Very well, Princess. My crew will disembark as per our agreement, but I want your word that they will be allowed to leave unharmed, and that you will not pursue them. Astra's eyes narrowed. You drive a hard bargain, Captain. But very well, you have my word. Your crew may depart in peace. Emilia let out a long, weary sigh, knowing that she had no other choice. She followed Jansen to the mess hall, where the Valiant's crew was gathered, their faces etched with a mix of fear, anger, and resolve. My friends, Emilia began, her voice heavy with regret. I'm afraid we have no choice but to abandon the Valiant. The princess has made it clear that she intends to take the ship for her own purposes. A collective murmur of dismay and outrage rippled through the crew, but Emilia raised her hand, silencing them. I know this is difficult, but our priority now is to ensure your safe return home. The princess has given her word that you will be allowed to leave unharmed. I need you all to follow my instructions to the letter, and we will see each other again, I promise. Emilia's gaze swept over the faces of her crew, her own eyes brimming with unused tears. She knew that this was not the end, that somehow, someway, she would find a way to reclaim her beloved ship. But for now, her focus had to be on ensuring the safety of her people. As the Valiant's crew filed out, Amelia steeled herself, her resolve hardening. She would not rest until she had found a way to get her ship back. As the Valiant's crew disembarked, Amelia watched them go with a heavy heart. She knew that this was not the end, that she would do whatever it took to find a way to reclaim her beloved ship. But for now, her priority was ensuring the safety of her people. Once the last crew member had departed, Amelia turned to face Astra, her expression hardening. "The Valiant is yours, Princess. I hope you know what you're getting yourself into." Astra's lips curled into a confident smile. "I assure you, Captain, I am fully aware of the capabilities of this vessel. It will serve my needs quite well." Amelia shook her head, a hint of resignation in her voice. "The Valiant is more than just a ship, Princess. She's a living, breathing entity, with a personality all her own. You may think you can simply take control, but I can guarantee you that she won't make it easy." Astra's brow furrowed in confusion. "What are you talking about, human? A ship is a tool, nothing more. I have the resources and the manpower to subjugate it to my will." Amelia sighed. "You underestimate the Valiant, and you underestimate my crew. They've poured their hearts and souls into this ship, and they know her better than anyone. You may have taken control of her, but you'll never truly understand her the way we do." The princess's eyes narrowed. "Are you suggesting that I cannot handle a mere cargo ship? I am a member of the Tsilian royal family, Captain. I have commanded armies and conquered worlds. This vessel will be no different." Amelia's gaze hardened. "Then I pity you, Princess. You're in for a rude awakening." Astra's face flushed with anger, but before she could respond, one of her soldiers hurried into the room, his expression urgent. "Your Highness, we have a situation. Several of the human crew members have not reported to the designated departure area." Astra's eyes widened, and she whirled to face Amelia. "What is the meaning of this, Captain? I thought we had an agreement." Amelia's lips curled into a faint smile. "We did, Princess, but you should know better than to trust the word of a primitive human." Astra's jaw tightened, and she turned to her soldiers. "Find those humans, and bring them to me. They will learn the consequences of defying me." As the soldiers rushed off, Amelia couldn't help but feel a surge of pride. She knew that her crew would not go down without a fight, and she silently hoped that they had a plan in place to reclaim the Valiant. The princess, meanwhile, paced the bridge, her frustration evident. "This is unacceptable. I will not be undermined by a group of lowly cargo haulers." Amelia simply watched, her expression unreadable. She knew that Astra was in for a rude awakening. The Valiant was no ordinary ship, and her crew was no ordinary group of humans. They were a family, bound together by their shared experiences and their unwavering loyalty to one another. And Amelia was determined to do whatever it took to bring them all back home, even if it meant going to war with a princess of the Tsilian Empire. Astra's frustration quickly turned to alarm as the search for the missing crew members yielded no results. The Valiant's labyrinthine corridors and the expertise of Amelia's team were proving to be a formidable obstacle for the princess's soldiers. "This is unacceptable." Astra fumed, pacing the bridge. "How could a group of lowly cargo haulers so easily evade my most seasoned fighters?" Amelia, who had been silently observing the proceedings, offered a faint smile. "I did warn you, Princess, that you underestimate the Valiant and her crew. They know this ship better than anyone, and they are fiercely protective of their home." Astra shot the captain a withering glare. "Your insolence is wearing thin, human. I will not tolerate any further resistance. If those cowards do not show themselves, I will have no choice but to destroy the entire ship." Amelia's expression hardened. "You would doom your own soldiers in the process. This ship is not as fragile as you seem to think." The princess's eyes narrowed. "Then I will give them one last chance. If the missing crew members do not surrender within the next hour, I will order my forces to systematically dismantle the Valiant, piece by piece, until they are found." Turning to her lieutenant, Astra barked, "Initiate the search protocol and have your men ready the demolition teams. I want that ship completely locked down." As the lieutenant hurried to carry out the princess's orders, Emilia felt a surge of dread. She knew that her crew was resourceful, but they were outmatched and outgunned. If Astra followed through on her threat, the consequences could be devastating. Steeling herself, Emilia stepped forward. "Princess, there may be another way. If you would allow me to speak with the missing crew members, I may be able to convince them to surrender peacefully." Astra regarded the captain with a skeptical eye. "And why should I trust you, human? For all I know, you're in league with them." Emilia met the princess's gaze unflinchingly. "Because I give you my word that I will do everything in my power to ensure their safe return. But you must promise to spare them, and to allow my crew to depart unharmed." The princess hesitated, her brow furrowed in thought. Finally, she nodded. "Very well, Captain. You have 1 hour. If the missing crew members are not delivered to me by then, I will proceed with the demolition." Emilia nodded, a glimmer of hope in her eyes. "Thank you, Princess. I will not let you down." As Emilia hurried off the bridge, Astra watched her go, a curious expression on her face. "This human continues to surprise me. Perhaps there is more to her than meets the eye." Unbeknownst to the princess, Emilia was already formulating a daring plan. She knew that time was of the essence, and she was determined to find a way to outwit the Xilian forces and reclaim the Valiant, no matter the cost. Emilia raced through the Valiant's corridors, her mind whirling with a daring plan. She knew that time was running out, and that she had to act quickly if she was to save her crew and reclaim her beloved ship. As she approached the hidden compartment where she had instructed the missing crew members to wait, Emilia paused, catching her breath. She could hear the faint sounds of activity within, and she steeled herself for the confrontation to come. "Jansen, it's me," Emilia called out, her voice low but firm. "I need to speak with you and the others." There was a moment of silence, and then the hatch slid open, revealing the faces of her most trusted crew members, Jansen, Samantha, and a handful of others. "Captain," Jansen said, his expression a mix of relief and concern, "we were worried you might not make it." Emilia offered him a wry smile. "I'm afraid I have some bad news. The princess has given me an ultimatum. Either I convince you to surrender, or she'll have her forces systematically dismantle the Valiant until you're found." The crew members exchanged worried glances, but Emilia raised her hand, silencing them. "However, I may have a plan to turn the tide in our favor, but I'll need your help and your trust." Jansen's brow furrowed, but after a brief moment of consideration, he nodded. "You know we're with you, Captain. What do you need us to do?" Emilia quickly outlined her plan, her voice low and urgent. As the crew listened, their expressions shifted from trepidation to determination. They knew the risks, but they also knew that this was their best chance to reclaim the Valiant and escape the princess's clutches. With a nod, Jansen turned to the others. "You heard the captain. Let's get to work." The crew members dispersed, each taking on their assigned tasks with a sense of purpose and urgency. Emilia watched them go, a glimmer of hope in her eyes. "Hold on, Valiant," she murmured. "We're coming for you." Meanwhile, on the bridge, Princess Astra paced restlessly, her patience wearing thin. The hour was nearly up, and she had yet to receive any word from Emilia. "Where is that infuriating human?" she growled, turning to her lieutenant. "Have the demolition team standing by. If the missing crew members do not surrender, I want this ship reduced to scrap." The lieutenant hesitated, his expression uneasy. "Your Highness, are you sure that's wise? The Valiant is a remarkable vessel, and we may never find another like it." Astra's eyes narrowed dangerously. "I care not for your doubts, Lieutenant. My orders stand. If the captain cannot convince her crew to surrender, then they will all perish." Just then, The bridge door slid open, and Amelia strode in, her expression calm and resolute. "I'm here, Princess," she said, her voice steady, "and I have a proposition for you." Astra's brow furrowed, her curiosity piqued despite her irritation. "Speak then, Captain. You have my attention." Amelia took a deep breath, knowing that the next few moments would determine the fate of her crew and her ship. "I can guarantee the safe surrender of the missing crew members. But in exchange, I want your word that you will allow the Valiant to depart, unmolested." The princess's eyes widened, and for a moment, Amelia thought she had miscalculated. But then, a slow, calculating smile spread across Astra's lips. "Very well, Captain. You have a deal." Princess Astra's eyes narrowed as she regarded Amelia, her lips curling into a calculating smile. "A bold proposition, Captain. You would surrender your missing crew in exchange for the Valiant's safe departure." She paused, her gaze sweeping over Amelia. "What guarantee do I have that you won't simply turn on me the moment your people are free?" Amelia met the princess's stare unflinchingly. "You have my word, Princess. I give you my solemn oath that if you allow the Valiant to leave unharmed, my crew and I will not interfere with your plans for this ship." Astra let out a soft chuckle. "Your word means little to me, Captain. However," she paused, tapping her chin thoughtfully, "I find myself intrigued by your audacity." "Very well, I accept your terms." Amelia fought to keep her expression neutral, even as a glimmer of triumph flickered in her eyes. "Then we have an agreement." "We do," Astra replied, her tone laced with a hint of amusement. "Bring your missing crew members to the bridge, and I will give the order for the Valiant's safe departure." Amelia nodded, then turned and strode out of the bridge, her mind racing. She knew that her crew was more than ready, having prepared meticulously for this moment. As Amelia approached the hidden compartment, Jansen emerged, his expression grim but resolute. "We're ready, Captain," he said, his voice low. "The rest of the team is waiting for your signal." Amelia placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. "Good work, Jansen. Now let's give the princess a show she'll never forget." Jansen nodded, and the two of them stepped out into the open, hands raised in surrender. Moments later, the remaining crew members emerged, their hands also raised in submission. As they were escorted to the bridge, Amelia caught Astra's eye, her expression unreadable. The princess watched the proceedings with a mixture of satisfaction and curiosity, her gaze never leaving the captain. Once the crew was assembled, Astra gestured to her lieutenant. "Give the order. The Valiant is to be allowed to depart, unmolested." The lieutenant hesitated, his brow furrowed in confusion. "But, Your Highness, what about the ship? Surely you don't intend to—" Astra cut him off with a sharp gesture. "Do as I command, Lieutenant. I have a feeling there is more to this vessel than meets the eye." The lieutenant, sensing the underlying warning in the princess's tone, quickly relayed the order, and Amelia watched as the Valiant's systems came to life, her engines powering up. As the ship began to move, Amelia turned to Astra, her expression hardening. "The deal is done, Princess. We will be on our way now." Astra's lips curled into a faint smile. "Not so fast, Captain. I'm afraid I have one more condition." Amelia's heart sank, but she forced herself to remain calm. "And what would that be?" "You," Astra replied, her gaze fixed on Amelia. "You will remain aboard the Valiant, as my guest." Amelia's eyes widened in surprise, but before she could respond, Jansen stepped forward, his expression defiant. "Over my dead body," he growled, his hand moving towards his sidearm. But Amelia raised a hand, silencing him. "Stand down, Jansen. I'll go." The first officer's eyes widened in shock, but Amelia's gaze was unwavering. She knew that this was a risk she had to take for the sake of her crew and her beloved ship. As Amelia was led away by Astra's soldiers, Jansen watched, his heart heavy with worry and uncertainty. The Valiant was safely on its way. but at what cost? As Emilia was escorted away by Astra's soldiers, she couldn't help but feel a pang of regret. She had hoped to be able to return to her crew and her beloved Valiant, but now her future was uncertain. Still, she knew that she had made the right choice. Her crew was safe, and the ship had escaped the princess's clutches. Astra watched Emilia's departure with a thoughtful expression. There was something about the human captain that intrigued her, a quiet strength and unwavering resolve that she had not encountered before. As the Valiant disappeared from view, the princess turned to her lieutenant. "Prepare a shuttle. I will be accompanying the captain back to my flagship." The lieutenant's eyes widened in surprise. "Your Highness, are you sure that is wise? Allowing the human to remain aboard the Valiant could prove risky." Astra's gaze hardened. "I am well aware of the risks, Lieutenant, but I believe there is more to this captain than meets the eye. I intend to get to know her better." The lieutenant nodded, though his expression remained uneasy. He knew better than to argue with the princess when she had set her mind on something. Meanwhile, on the Valiant, Jansen and the rest of the crew watched helplessly as their captain was taken away. The weight of their decision to surrender hung heavy in the air, and Jansen knew that they would have to face the consequences of their actions. "What now, Captain?" Jansen murmured, his eyes fixed on the rapidly shrinking form of the princess's shuttle. Emilia's voice, though distant, carried a note of reassurance. "Do not worry, Jansen. I have faith in you and the rest of the crew. Take the Valiant home and wait for my signal." Jansen's brow furrowed in confusion, but before he could respond, the shuttle had disappeared from view, and Emilia was gone. As the Valiant made its way back to Earth, Jansen and the crew set to work, repairing the damage done during the princess's takeover and preparing the ship for what lay ahead. They knew that Emilia had sacrificed herself to ensure their safety, and they were determined to honor her trust. Days turned to weeks, and the Valiant finally reached Earth, its crew weary but resolute. Jansen immediately contacted the authorities, informing them of the situation and requesting immediate assistance. Within hours, a fleet of military vessels had arrived, their weapons at the ready. Jansen and the crew watched anxiously as the ships surrounded the Valiant, their hearts pounding with a mixture of hope and trepidation. Suddenly, a familiar voice crackled over the ship's communication system. "This is Captain Emilia Sarandos of the Valiant. Stand down, all of you. I have a message from the Tsilian Empire." Jansen's eyes widened, and he quickly relayed Emilia's message to the waiting fleet. Moments later, the ships began to withdraw, their commanders clearly perplexed but following orders. As the Valiant's crew gathered on the bridge, Emilia's face appeared on the main view screen, her expression grim but determined. "My friends, I have returned with a proposition from the Tsilian Empire. They are willing to share their advanced technology and resources with Earth in exchange for our continued cooperation and the use of the Valiant as a diplomatic vessel." The crew exchanged stunned glances, their minds racing with the implications of Emilia's words. Jansen stepped forward, his voice trembling with emotion. "Captain, you're alive, but at what cost?" Emilia offered him a bittersweet smile. "The cost was high, Jansen, but I believe it was worth it. The Valiant and her crew have a vital role to play in the future of human-alien relations, and I intend to see it through, no matter what." As the Valiant's crew absorbed the news, a newfound sense of purpose and determination began to take hold. They had faced the might of the Tsilian Empire and emerged victorious, and now they had the chance to forge a new path, one that would shape the future of their species. Jansen stepped forward, his gaze unwavering. "We're with you, Captain, all the way." Emilia nodded, her eyes shining with pride. "Then let's get to work. The galaxy awaits."